Hello, my name is Mary Moore, and I am a member of the Thurston County League of Women Voters. Welcome to another candidate forum brought to you by our Thurston County League of Women Voters. The League is a group of men and women who are nonpartisan but concerned with the various issues that are national and local. Today we'll be hosting the primary election candidates for the position of State Representative for District 22, Position 1. We would like to thank TCTV for all their assistance and their support. We could not bring you these candidate forums without them. Now, our candidates this morning with us are Stu Henderson and Steve Robinson and Judi Tennant Hoefling and where are you? Jason Hearn and Chris Reykdal. Missing this morning are two more candidates that will be on the ballot, and that would be F.G. Jensen and Jeremy Miller. But we're delighted to have you all here today. We're going to have a lively forum. We're all interested in what you have to say. What I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to give each one of you, and we'll start with Stu over there on the other side of the table. I'm going to ask you to give us a 1-minute opening remark. We have a timer sitting over here, so keep a little eye on her every once in a while. And then we will again start with Stu, and we will start asking questions. I have 7 questions that each one of you will get to answer. And so with question number 1, I'll start with Stu. With question number 2, I'll start with Steve, and so on. We'll do a kind of a round robin. Now, at the end of the questions, then I'm going to give each one of you a chance for a 1-minute closing statement. I'm going to make a few statements about the importance of voting, and then we will wrap this up. That sound okay to everybody? Just relax. We're going to have a good time. Okay. Stu Henderson.
Mary.
Your opening remarks, please.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Stu Henderson. I'm asking for your support to become your next state representative so I can get in there and fight for jobs and for working families, to fight on behalf of seniors and people on fixed incomes, and most of all, to fight for our kids and for our future. I'm very proud and humbled to have the support of 20 local elected officials. It's twice as many as everyone else in the field here combined. Really good people like Sandra Romero, Karen Valenzuela, Steve Bucksbaum, Jolene Unsold. And they're supporting me because they've seen me in action out in the community, working for jobs, working for our schools, working for the environment. I'm a father. I'm a husband, former Peace Corps volunteer, was a city councilman for 7 years, was assistant director at the Department of Labor and Industries. I own a small business now in town here, consulting business, helping people work better together to get things done. I spent my career solving problems and getting results. I think we need some of that in the legislature. I'd love to have your support. Thank you very much. Thank you. Steve.
Hello, I'm Steve Robinson, and first I'd like to thank the League for hosting this event this morning, and TCTV. As a film producer myself, an Emmy Award-winning film producer, I know the great importance of community television. And I am a candidate that is not like most politicians. I didn't set my career aside to run. I haven't dreamed about being a politician all my life. I was asked to run because I'm highly qualified. I've been working in the legislature for 30 years. In fact, probably the most qualified for this particular position among all the candidates. And I'm very happy to be here today. And again, thank you for having us. I have a lot of great endorsements also, but really the endorsement that really counts is you, the voter. So I hope that I am able to convince you today to vote for me. Thank you.
Judi.
Good morning. I'm Judi Hoefling, Judi Tennant Hoefling, and I'm here today because I believe strongly in the legislative process. And so I bring with me the skills and strong experience of having worked in this community for over 30 years. And of course, I've worked in healthcare for many years. I also work on economic issues and on law and justice committee issues. But my overriding passion is for the most vulnerable among us. I am passionate about helping children in need, our growing aging population, and the disabled. To ignore the continuing problems that they face is to leave fragile elderly, shattered children, and jails filled with the mentally ill and addicted. We can no longer economically afford not to help them. We cannot keep passing this on to our children. Parents can be educated, children can be protected, elders can be cared for with dignity. The mentally ill and addicted can and do recover. I see that every day in my work. It is good economic policy to help them. Not to provide assistance to these populations costs us in both public dollars and the creation of ongoing dysfunctional families that continues to create high public safety expenses and high health costs. The legislature is where this kind of change can happen, and that's why I'm running. Thanks.
Jason.
Hello, Mary. My name is Jason Hearn. I'm currently City Council member. I serve as the chair of the Transportation Committee. I also serve on intergovernmental committees of solid waste and garbage and recycling. I serve on the EMS board. I'm also on the Economic Development and Finance Committee and Lacey Council. I'm an employer and a father of 3 small children, and I'm running to help form a new direction in Washington to bring some stability to jobs, both public and private, and to be a part of the solutions that we need to find for our economy and for our communities. I do have the support and backing of Sam Reed. I also have the support and backing of Rob McKenna, Attorney General. So I look forward to this process, and thank you for having me here today.
And finally, Chris, last remarks.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you to the League. This is an organization that spent the better part of 70 or 80 years in a nonpartisan fashion trying to identify critical problems in communities and elevating those. And honestly, without the League, I'm not sure this race would have the visibility that it's getting now, so thank you very much. My name is Chris Reykdal. I was born and raised in Western Washington, grew up very, very poor, and it really is the compelling reason I'm in the race. Here we are in probably the most difficult economic time that our state has faced in probably 80 years, and our constant solution to more and more difficulty for families is to cut services to them, and it's unacceptable. When we compromise our K-12 system with deep cuts, when we compromise the vulnerable, we compromise the entire economic fabric of our community. We are a service community with 30,000 public employees, state, hospital workers, city and county. I'm proud to have the endorsement of every labor organization in this race so far, and 2 of the 3 mayors in our community, because I think they all want a different direction, one that honors working families and one that is about courage and commitment to real answers. Trickle down doesn't work. We've tried it for 30 years. It's a failure. It's time to reinvest in working people, and in this community, it means working for public employees, because our small businesses depend so much on this economy being healthy. Thanks again to the League. Appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much for your opening remarks, and now let's get going on our questions to you. Again, we'll start first with Stu. I'm not picking on you.
I can take it. I can take it.
All right.
We're going into a tough job. We got to be ready to handle everything.
So I'll ask the question, and then each one of you have 1 minute to respond. Our first question for you this morning is, what do you see as the 2 or 3 major challenges for the next legislature other than balancing the budget?
Great. Thank you. I think the 2 or 3 major challenges facing the state are really the things that I speak to people at the doors every day. I'm planning to knock on 15,000 doors here in this race. We've knocked on over 5 already and spoken to people all across Thurston County in the district. I think the first challenge is jobs. When people don't have work, nothing else matters. The legislature can't create jobs, but there's a lot of things that the legislature can do to increase hiring, and we have to make sure that the legislature is leaving no stone unturned to get people to work. The second thing is full funding for education. It's been promised and promised for years and years. We've gotten window dressing, we've gotten Band-Aids, but we haven't solved the problem. We've got to get down and solve the problem and get full funding for education. The final issue, I think, is protection of our environment. We depend on Puget Sound. Our long-term economic health depends on preserving Puget Sound and all our beautiful environment around here, and I'm going to fight for all 3 of those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
Well, this question really goes to what my campaign is based upon, and that's the 3 E's, and that's the economy, which equates to jobs, and we need specifics in this community. We need to help get the kinds of jobs that are sustainable. That means we need to take a look at what is good for our children. We need to be building sustainable forestry jobs. We need to stop looking at our port as a place to build giant hotels. We need to have history there. We need to have the kind of thing that will attract tourism. We need to have the kinds of jobs that are good for small business. We need to stop with the furloughs. That's a crazy idea. We need to support our state workers. We need to do what's good for the environment. The fact is that I am the environmental candidate. I have been supporting the environment hard, working hard on that for 30 years. I am the environmental candidate. And we also need to be looking at education. The fact is I'm also the education candidate. I'm the president-elect of the Environmental Education Association of Washington. I am the candidate to do those things. And those are the 3 things. And there is a 4th thing, and that is equity, and also the social responsibility and the social reform candidate. I've been working for the tribes for the last 23 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judi, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I have it, Mary.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I have been working in this community for over 30 years, and so my priorities are those things that I have seen the needs for so long. And one is that I happen to serve on the Tumwater City Council, so I understand what it's like to try to legislate and have a budget in this environment. So the jobs bill that's will be before the voters in November is an important piece for me. To upgrade our schools and create jobs is a great way that a legislative action can take place. To expand education to take care of children from ages 3 to 5 is another priority of mine, because in my job at Behavioral Health Resources for mentally ill and addicted, I see the children who did not have that good education. So I think that those kinds of things are really worth it for me. The third is stormwater management, I think, is an important piece, because we're working on that in Tumwater. We've got purple pipe everywhere, and we're using that water to water our golf course, and so we're actually putting it to use. So those are the 3 big things that I would work on right away.
Thank you. Jason?
Like you said, other than balancing the budget, we need to prioritize things in the budget. We need to honor all promises made to state employees, retirement funds. That's a mandate that we need to not question. We also need to fund education first and not use it as a negotiating tool at the end of the session. I think those are 2 important things we need to cover.
Thank you. And Chris?
Yeah, you can't separate the question from the budget, but I appreciate the specifics in this. As a former school teacher, now school board member in Tumwater, my wife's a counselor at Olympia High School. We've dedicated our lives to public education, and so that is clearly the paramount duty of the state, and it is a tragedy that just in the middle of this session, the courts once again relayed that message to our legislature that is your paramount duty, and the answer to that was to put more burden on local districts and more cuts to our kids. It's priority number 1 for me. It's what I put my life and passion into. The second thing, though, really is this concept of vulnerable workers and vulnerable families. You have got to sustain a middle class to sustain Washington, sustain America. You cannot continue to bring the biggest benefits of the economy to the very wealthy and hope that it trickles down. It simply doesn't work. And finally, we need meaningful tax reform, something that honors small businesses, something that rewards low-income and middle-income families for working hard. And right now, we have completely turned our tax code into something for the privileged, and it's time to end it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, Steve, we'll start with you with our question number 2. And that is, what are your budget priorities?
Well, the gap between the rich and the poor has expanded greatly in this country and in this area. And, you know, I'm a strong supporter of the high earner tax initiative. We need to that's one of my priorities, is Initiative 1097. We need to support that. We need to also take a very strong look at the budget in state government, item by item by item by item. You know, the fact is that I have been working on that for a very long time, but we need to prioritize natural resources. We've had less than 2% of our budget go to natural resource management and environmental protection for far too long in the state. We need to prioritize education, as has already been stated here. We need to take care of our kids. You know, what our achievements in education are not what they should need to be. And those are my priorities. The economy, jobs are my priority.
Thank you. Judi?
Again, my priorities are vulnerable people. And I've spoken to the issues with children right now. I want to see legislation passed that takes care of, that puts children from 3 to 5 into the basic education. I want to see, I want us to take a look at the fact that we have a bow wave of elderly coming toward us, and we begin to put legislation in place that will take care of them. Otherwise, we're going to have extremely high health costs. And then obviously we need to look at how we can fulfill our promise to the people that work for us, the state employees. And I think, I have 10 seconds left, so I've got to say this quickly. I think there's 3 ways for government to balance budgets. One is to cut services, one is to raise revenues, and the other one is to make the pie bigger. And I'm a great advocate of making the pie bigger by targeted marketing of our state to agencies that, or to companies that could come here.
Okay, thank you. Now, Jason, what are your budget priorities?
We need to honor all retirement promises made to state employees, and we need to fund education first. While on Lacey City Council, I was part of a vote to cut more than $2 million from the budget, and we did not cut staff or services during that time. Fortunately, we didn't cut the lifeguards either, and the next year they saved 10 lives.
Thank you. Chris?
It is about K-12 and early learning, so putting a larger share of both our state budget and our private sector GDP into education creates huge yields and huge long-term benefit. It's what's made Washington great, it's what's made America great over time. So clearly moving more of our overall investment to education is a big priority for me. We have an obligation with respect to stormwater and Puget Sound cleanup, and we had a tremendous opportunity last session to put a tax on very large corporations in place that would create a form of revenue dedicated to the cleanup. And if you don't think what happened in the Gulf can happen in the state of Washington, please dive into the issue. We are producing and refining a lot of that product in the north part of our sound, and we have got to take this more seriously. So revenue for Puget Sound cleanup would be another big priority in addition to education.
Okay, thank you. Right now, Judi, we'll start with you.
Actually, how about, can I get a chance to answer that question?
Oh, gee, did I forget you, Stu?
You didn't forget me. You were just
sorry.
putting a dramatic moment here in the in the process, so that.
It is now your turn.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that the budget priorities that I would have are the ones that I talked about already: jobs, education, protecting our environment. It's critical that we not be balancing the budget on the backs of the most vulnerable, which is what has been happening in the past. It is critical. Tax reform underlies everything that we've related to the budget. I've talked to so many seniors on fixed incomes at their doors who are just being terribly burdened. Our tax system is unfair. We tax the poorest fifth of the income earners 3 times what the richest fifth get. It's simply unfair, and we have to address that. And we have to really look at the parts of the budget that are really investments. There's cuts you can make now, they're going to cost you more down the line, and that doesn't really save us. Thank you.
Okie dokie. Now, where was I? I believe Judi. All right. Now, Judi, should you be elected and the legislature must decide on whether to maintain Capitol Lake as a lake or an estuary, what would be your position and why?
You know, I've spent a lot of time talking to my constituency in Tumwater about this because this came up at the Tumwater City Council. So I had long conversations with them, and the ideas were all over the map. But what it really came down to for me was, I think that the state made a promise to the community quite some time ago that if they could put in a reflecting pond and maintain it, it would allow us to dredge out the materials that are coming down the river, and also create a reflecting pond for the state property that's on the hill. And that promise has not been kept for quite some time. And now the lake is in such a state that it looks like we have to do something really dramatic. I would like to see further study, and so that's where I'm at on it.
Thank you. Jason, what's your stand on it?
To me, a lake looks a lot more beautiful than the other. So I would say that we make it healthy and have it be a lake.
All right, that's short and sweet. Chris, what's your response?
A lake without question. There is a capital campus design that includes that reflecting pond, and we need to honor it. The state's obligation as a state property is that they dredge it, which they have failed to do for a decade and a half. This is an economic development tool for our community. People come to our community, spend their tourism dollars seeing our capital, and that lake is a part of it. The activity that goes on, the human health aspects of being able to walk around and hike around that lake. We've invested far too much in that to let it go. It needs to be a lake. It needs to be dredged. You can have proper habitat management and species management in that lake and still have it as a recreational and economic development tool, and I'm strongly in favor of that. It does need a little more study, but the question isn't lake or no lake. It's how to maintain that lake effectively and appropriately for balance. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Stu.
Great. It's a great question. I really I can't imagine the Olympia waterfront without a lake. I don't like how the discussion's gone in a lot of ways. I think there's 2 bad solutions on the table. One bad solution is a lake that ends up harming the environment in Bud Bay. Another bad solution is an estuary that harms the social and economic quality of downtown Olympia. I think we have to keep working on this. We have to keep looking at all the options. We have to find a good option that is both environmentally sound and preserves the social and economic returns. That's either going to be a lake or that I believe there's some kind of dual option. Actually, the initial Olmsted plans, the fellow who designed Central Park has plans that really had a dual use option, a reflecting pool and still the river running alongside. We need to look at all the options.
Okay, finally, Steve.
Well, I try not to second guess Mother Nature. I am my choice most often, you know, if I have the option, and my personal preference is to go with Mother Nature. We look at what has happened with the Nisqually estuary, and it's a beautiful, beautiful project. And it's something that's taken many years to produce. And it's something that's benefiting the community in many, many, many ways. And it creates jobs. My personal preference would be to go with the way nature had it. But we have other options on the table, as has been discussed. And my choice as a state representative would be to support what the community and the tribe, which has traditional rights there, chooses to do. And what it chooses to do, I will support. But as has been stated, it has not been managed properly, and that will happen if I have anything to say about it.
Thank you very much. Very interesting responses. Okay, I guess it's next your turn, Jason.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
As a result of the Public Records Act, in the electronic age, the number and volume of requests to state and local government has increased by a great deal. How do you see balancing the need for open government while ensuring that the increasingly large and frequent requests do not deter the government from performing its necessary functions?
Well, I think open and transparent government is a very high priority. And it seems to me that with technology today, we should be able to accommodate that efficiently. Specifically, I'm not an IT person, but there must be ways where we can make government information completely accessible to anybody that asks in a clear and efficient way that doesn't burden government.
Okay, Chris?
Well, as a state employee myself, I actually deal with this a lot in my office, so I really appreciate the question. We are seeing unprecedented cuts to services. We've unfortunately had to lay folks off. And at the same time, there is this crushing demand for more expectation, and it's appropriate. The public has an absolute right to all public information, but I think there's something in here utilizing technology. Part of it is training agencies for the expectation of public inquiry. We went a long time thinking that was an anomaly. It's a new reality where you have to train your employees to expect everything will be public, and then you start archiving differently, you start basically sorting your data differently. But also, there is a responsibility of the public. There is a responsibility for them to be informed about the costs that these inquiries have on public employees when we have shrinking resources. And I don't think it's inappropriate to ask those who make requests to receive some information that we give them on what it cost us to produce the request. I have had folks say, I didn't know that, and I'll pare down my requests in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Could you repeat the question again, Mary?
Yes. As a result of the Public Records Act, in the electronic age, the number and volume of requests to state and local government has increased by a great deal. How do you see balancing the need for open government while ensuring that the increasingly large and frequent requests do not deter the government from performing its necessary function?
Great. That's a great question. We absolutely have to have open and transparent government. We absolutely have to have the public, all citizens have a legitimate right to the information that the government has. I think we have not done enough. There are frivolous requests for information. There are actually requests for information that aren't sincere requests for information. They're being sent in to bog down government and they end up increasing the burden. There's some amazing things, harmful things going on in Department of Corrections and requests from prisoners that are bogging down the system. And I think we need to have some sort of process to separate legitimate requests from requests that really do not fit the spirit of the law and that are causing unnecessary cost to taxpayers that I don't think taxpayers really want to pay.
Thank you. Steve?
Look, when I started this conversation, I said that I'm not your typical political person, and I'm not. And I said that I'm the most qualified person, and I will challenge anybody at this table to compare their resume with mine when it comes to experience for this position, anytime, any place. But the fact is, everybody out there has a legitimate role in government. I've been going up to the legislature for the last 30 years, participating in killing bad bills and helping good ones move along. And the fact is, every one of you has got a role, an important role in this government. And the fact is, it needs to be transparent, and you need to step forward and be part of it. And one of the most important ways to do that is coming up when you get an opportunity to vote. I encourage you to step forward and vote, and government needs to be transparent. You need to have the opportunity to be part of it. That's very, very important. Thank you.
Okay. And finally, Judi?
Thank you, Mary. With the recent decision by the Supreme Court on corporations being able to provide money to candidates, I think that transparency is going to be even more important. I don't think we really understand how much transparency is going to have to take place. But I have experience with this in that the city of Tumwater was asked for reams of information that was a frivolous well, I thought it was a frivolous lawsuit, but it reflects on what Stu had to say about it too. And so what we've done at the city is we've used our technology and we put most of our documents on the website so that people can access this. And then we have a fee schedule now for how much we will charge for copies. And that way, people who have an interest in getting information about it have the ability to do that in a simple way as possible. And I want everybody to participate in our government. I would encourage you, first of all, to come to every council meeting or every legislative hearing if you can, but of course not everybody can. So, thanks.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So Chris, finally, we get to you first. Okay. State colleges and universities are raising tuition by 14%, making higher education unaffordable by many students. What would you support to maintain financial accessibility for the students of our state?
Right. It's a great question. I spend my my daily life in this question. As the Deputy Executive Director of the Community College Board, we have a simple philosophy. The low tuition is the best form of financial aid, period. There's no other debate about that. Mm-hmm. You can put complicated systems in place that have very high tuition, and then you need very high financial aid models to accommodate. And there's some room for that, perhaps at our universities, but not our two-year colleges, which are serving 500,000 students a year. It is their access point to higher ed. Simply, the state needs to do this. It needs a contract with the citizens that says, as taxpayers, we know we have an obligation to give you access to higher education, whether it's at a two-year or four-year college technical school. And in doing so, the state will create a relationship, a balance, which we had for a long time in this state, that said the state share will be 75% and the student family payer contribution will be 25%. We need to get back to that kind of policy so that there's certainty for families and there's certainty in financial planning for families. We can do this right now.
Thank you. Stu.
Thank you. Well, this is a very critical question. It's really an economic development issue. A lot of people don't understand that we do not actually have an unemployment problem in this state. We have an unemployment problem for people who lack sufficient education. People who have college education, the unemployment rate in the state is 5%. If you've graduated high school, it's 10%. If you haven't graduated high school, it's 15%. Mm-hmm. So it is critical for our economic development, for our future, that we get people into higher education and get them through it. The number one thing for that is that it has to be affordable. We have to keep tuitions down. We have to, as the legislature makes these decisions, it can't just be a decision about higher education. It's got to be a decision looking at the whole long-term impact, the investment that higher education means in our future. And we have to make that investment. We have to build our economic future.
Thank you. Steve.
Thank you. I absolutely agree that this is a very critical question, and I agree with many of the things that Chris and Stu have said. And as the president-elect of the Environmental Education Association and a board member of Pacific Education Institute and the education manager of the commission that I work for, I strongly support us prioritizing support for education at all levels, preschool through college, community colleges, trade schools, everything in the legislature and through state government. Getting all the federal funds support that we can. Environment, education, and economy are connected. All of these things are connected, and we have to do it. And we have to also take care of our veterans. I am a veteran, and we have to take care of our veterans as they return. We have to have equity. We have to think about the people who are the most in need. We have to support that, and we have to support it to the greatest ability.
Thank you, Steve. That's great. Judi?
Thank you, Mary. I agree with what's been said, and I won't repeat it, but the issue for me about making sure that they have a good education, and I have grandkids coming up that I want them to have the opportunity to be educated, and they will. But there's lots of kids that won't. And what creates a strong economy in America are middle-income families. And without education, you do not get to the middle-income brackets. And so it's critically important to me that we make sure that we have educational opportunities that are affordable and accessible. And whether we use technology to do that or whether we have people actually go into a school, I think there's ways to save money by using technology in our rural areas in particular to make education less expensive. Thank you.
Okay. And Jason?
The fact that the cost of education and higher education and tuition is going up begs the question, why? Why is the price going up, and why is it costing more to go to a junior college or a university? If we look at those questions carefully, we can look at ways to reduce that cost. The good news is that the demand for higher education is high. People want more education, and that's a good thing. So perhaps we need to look at ways of reducing those costs. And one way would be to build more schools, open up the market so that the demand will fuel higher education, and it will work for itself to create lower costs and more education opportunities for everybody.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So now I believe we have it back to your turn, Stu. And this question says that it appears that the income tax initiative I-1098 will be on the ballot this fall. If passed, do you intend to support it? And if so, why? Or why not?
Well, thank you. Important question. I believe I addressed this earlier. I helped get I-1098 on the ballot. I'm gonna recommend it. I have been recommending it at people's doors. If it doesn't pass, I'll be working for those same principles on the floor of the legislature. Right now, our tax system is terribly unbalanced. The poor pay 3 times what the rich pay. If we had an initiative on the ballot that said, should the poor pay 3 times what the rich pay, no one would vote for that initiative. And yet somehow that's what we have. And every year we pass that initiative again by not doing something about it. I don't believe that's what people want. I don't believe that's what people really want in this state. The high earner income tax will help bring some balance to that. We have to do it in a way that does not become a greater burden on lower income people, and I think it's a great start.
Okay, thank you. Steve?
I absolutely support it. I am 100% in favor of this initiative, and if it doesn't pass, and I have also been working very hard on it, if it doesn't pass, I'm going to be supporting the principles behind it as well, because as I said earlier, the gap between the rich and the poor has grown in this country, and this country, as a capitalist country, was never intended to be a country where people exploit the natural resources of this that we have, which are limited, by the way, at the expense of the working people. This is intended to be a country where opportunity is available for all. And that's what this is all about. The opportunity is yours. You can make a living. You can have the dignity of supporting your family and having a roof over your head. That you can educate your children. That you can have a good life, quality of life. And that's what this is all about. And that's what my campaign is all about. Thank you.
Okay, Judi, how do you feel about this?
Thank you, Mary. I do support the income tax initiative, and one of the reasons I particularly like it is because it reduces B&O tax on small businesses, and I think we need to give small businesses all the help we can, and also to create some equity in the tax system. And I agree that poor people are taxed much higher than the wealthy people. And I think the wealthy people that I know that are really thoughtful about this agree that it would be a good thing to revise our tax system. So I'm anxious for us work on that. And when I get to the legislature, one of the things I want to do is do some refinements on the bill. It's pretty basic as it is now, but I think there's a number of ways that we can work on it and make it an even better bill.
Okay, fine. And Jason, how do you feel about it?
Could you please repeat the question?
Sure. It appears that the income tax initiative, I-1098, will be on the ballot this fall. If passed, do you intend to support it? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
There's a famous, thank you. There's a famous quote by Winston Churchill that says, taxing an economy into prosperity is like standing in a bucket and lifting it off the ground. I don't think that we can grow our economy by burdening people that earn with more and more taxes. I think we need to grow our economy by increasing tax revenues from prosperity. The B&O tax was mentioned on small business. That's a very burdensome tax because it's tax that's paid before earnings are made. And so we need to take the shackles off of small business so they can grow their businesses, hire more people, pay more taxes, and increase and grow the economy. Okay,
Chris?
Thank you. Winston Churchill was a trickle-down capitalist, and I disagree with him. The fact is, Washington State's state and local government now, state and local government, not the feds, its share of total GDP is down from 12% to 10% in 30 years. This matters to everyday Washingtonians because it means there's less and less service. The reason there's high tuition, the state's not investing in higher ed. The reason we're frustrated with our public schools, because we haven't invested in our K-12 system. We have to invest in the things we care about. 1098 gives us this option. By lowering B&O taxes, 80% of businesses will be better off. Fixed income seniors will have lower property taxes, and some of that burden will be shifted to very high income earners. I support it, it's the right thing to do, and it takes Washington from a tax code that is ancient and archaic into a modern era. It's the best thing we can do for the economy is stimulate it with real people getting real money, not by giving handouts to big business and hoping it gets to the people.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, this last question, we'll start with you, Steve, is one where you need to put on your thinking caps. As you know, in our legislature, we don't just pay for things. We don't just vote to pay for things. We vote on other very, very important issues as well. What do you believe should be done by the state legislature besides providing funding that would provide the best possible education for the children residing in Washington State?
Can you repeat it one more time, sir?
What do you believe should be done by the state legislature besides funding to provide the best possible education for the children in Washington State?
Okay. There are so many things, and I think there are so many opportunities for people in a position of leadership to be able to provide education. In that position, you have a responsibility to lead an exemplary life. You have an opportunity to step forward and show courage. You know, many of the people who run for public office and who are in public office make decisions based upon political motives. There was a book that I read when I was in school called Profiles in Courage. It was written by John F. Kennedy. And it was about people who gave up their political lives in many cases because they made decisions that were the right thing to do at the expense of their political careers. That's what we need in public office. We need people who have the courage to stand up and tell the truth and provide true leadership. And that's the kind of a state legislator that I intend to be. I will tell the truth. I will stand up and tell the truth. And the truth is, we have many problems. We need real solutions. And we need real experience for those problems today. Thank
Judi?
Mary, would you repeat the question again?
Sure. maybe I couldn't phrase it this way. Besides money,
There you go.
what do you believe should be done by the state legislature to provide the best possible education for the children residing in Washington State?
Okay.
Realizing that we are not in a good position now. Our students are not achieving as they should be. Okay, we all know that. What would you support?
That is a very thoughtful question. I think that the best way to specifically do it is to use technology. I don't think that we've used our technology very well to educate. I don't know that we need the big edifices anymore of school buildings that cost us so much money to maintain. I'm wondering if we don't need to use technology in smaller venues, like our libraries and our city halls. And I know that sounds simplistic and we couldn't do it right away, but I really think that we ought to be thinking about what we do with technology and where we have our teachers located. Are there ways to use schools in the evening, for instance? Can we do something like that? I think we ought to be doing a massive study on this as to how we can expand education and not cost ourselves more money for the infrastructure that we have in place to do it. So,
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jason.
Thank you. We need to advocate for more local control of the schools and let school boards and teachers educate our children, and not let big overriding mandates control the education in a local environment. That's what we need to do.
All right. Chris?
A couple of big things. First of all, student achievement in our state is a function of students being prepared and being healthy and safe. We have got to address poverty in Washington before you can address the education system. When you have so many kids coming to school who are hungry, they cannot learn. When they come to school abused, they cannot learn. So we have to address families. And it's okay, everyone just should take a deep breath and say, it's okay to tell parents that institutions like high schools and junior highs and elementary schools cannot fix in 6 hours what families can't do in 18 hours. It's okay for us to say that schools have a big part in educating students, but the greatest responsibility is parents and community and all of us working together. We've been afraid to say that. Well, we can't tell people it's their responsibility. It must be government's responsibility. Not always, but we have a big role to play in that. And the last thing I would say is more vocational technical education programs. Multiple pathways for kids so they all have a different pathway to their success. We need to bring shops back to our schools.
Thank you. Stu?
Great, thank you. I have been talking, as I said, to thousands of people at their doors, hundreds of teachers, school counselors, bus drivers. I have been just stunned at the stories that I've heard from teachers about the degree to which social problems are washing over into the schools and keeping our kids from learning, and having a few kids in the classroom who can keep the whole class from learning. We've got kids coming into kindergarten who have never been read to in their lives. We have kids coming to 3rd grade and 2nd grade who, on Monday morning, who haven't eaten all weekend. And education is getting hit for things that education can't fix. As a legislature, we have to get serious about looking at what's going on in our families. We have to get serious about supporting families. We have to get serious in some cases about holding parents accountable, and we have to deal with these things. There's a way that we're in denial about what's really going on, and if it's not dealt, our kids are going to suffer. Our kids are suffering right now. We're all going to suffer.
Thank you. Very, very thoughtful responses to our questions, and we thank you very much. We've wrapped up our questions. And now you all have a chance for wrapping up our today's program. One last 1 minute for each one of you. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Chris.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Again, thanks to the League. This is where democracy happens because they give us an opportunity to inform the public about our values and what we care about, because ultimately the voters are going to make this decision. I'm a parent of 2 kids, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, just starting their journey in our schools. I have a lot personally at stake, and our community has a lot at stake in getting this right. That's why my platform from the beginning has been education first. It is the long-term economic driver of our state. Vulnerable families, so that those kids come to school prepared to learn, and ultimately to pay for these things, including clean air and clean water, you have to address the tax code in Washington. It is old, it is broken, it is beyond repair, it needs an overhaul, and working class families need an opportunity to succeed again. I'm asking for your sincere consideration for me in this campaign so that I can fight for our community, fight for middle class and those who are struggling. We got to turn this thing around, and it starts with bold courage. So thank you.
Jason.
Thank you. Thank you for the time here today. I would encourage you to go to my website, jasonhearn.com, learn more about me, engage, send me emails through this process so that you can learn more about me and why I'm running. We need a new direction in Washington, and we need to protect what we have here in the 22nd District. And I'm running for those reasons. And I'd like to ask you to consider a vote for me because it would be good for this area. Thank you.
Judi.
Thanks, Mary. I think that the things I'd like to leave you with are the importance of educating children from a young age so that we grow healthy and strong adults, and the importance of intervening in generational dysfunction of mental illness and addiction that have resulted in children not being ready for school, that have resulted in children being abused and not protected. Let us intervene with, we now have information on brain science that allows us to do the kinds of treatment that work with that. Let us intervene in that generational piece and handle that. Then as we get into the length of life that we're seeing with the baby boomers now aging out, I think that we're going to have a bow wave of elderly that will overwhelm our rest home system, according to the experts I've talked to, that our rest home systems and all the retirement homes will be overwhelmed as well. So one of my things is I want to create generational housing, multi-generational housing, so that we can take care of our kids and our elders.
Steve?
Thank you. Well, I started out by saying I'm not your typical politician, and I'm not. Environment, education, economy, that's what our platform is. That's what we stand for, and they're all connected. Over the last several months, we've been witnessing some horror in the Gulf of Mexico. And the reason that Congressman Dix called me and said he supports my campaign, and the reason that people like Senators Ranker and Rockefeller and a number of other legislators and the leaders of the Puget Sound Partnership and the leaders of the People for Puget Sound and the National Wildlife Federation, a number of other entities have called me and endorsed my campaign. The reason they've done that is because they've seen me in action over the last 30 years. And that's just one of the many issues that I've been very, very involved with, keeping the Gulf catastrophe from happening here. I was very involved with getting the tug at Nia Bay full-time, very involved with keeping offshore drilling out of here, very involved with first-line defense.
Thank you, Steve.
I've been very involved with these environmental issues, and I will work for you. Thank you.
Stu?
Thank you very much. I really want to thank my friends here at the League for what you've been doing here. Mostly thank, obviously, my colleagues who are also running for this seat. Mostly thank you, the citizen who is watching this, who's taking your job as a citizen seriously by looking at these issues. In a race like this, people tend to carve out a niche that they're working. I am proud that I'm the one candidate in this race who has spoken out to the entire community and won support from across the entire community. Won the support of labor through being endorsed by the Federation of State Employees. Won the support from environmentalists with support from the Sierra Club. Sole endorsement from the Sierra Club and the Washington Conservation Voters. From the LGBT community, our gay and lesbian brothers and sisters, small business leaders, educators, healthcare professionals, members of progressive faith communities. I've spent my whole career solving problems and getting things done. I think we need that in our legislature. I hope I can get your support. Stu Henderson, stufor22.com. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This has been a delightful conversation, and I appreciate your time and your effort. Thank you for running, for one thing.
Thank you.
We appreciate that a great deal. The League supports good government. And in order to have that good government, we need to have knowledgeable voters. We need voters. So I say to all of you out there listening to and watching us today, please make sure that you are registered to vote, and please vote. Just because it's a primary doesn't mean that you have no obligations in this arena. Voting responsibly and knowledgeably is the most important thing you can do in a democracy. So vote, make sure you're registered, and should you need additional information on how to register, please go to the League's website, which is www.lwvthurston.org. Thank you and goodbye.